overtime excitement. NHL hockey, the National Hockey League playoffs. This the time of year, and there's overtime everywhere. Let's get to it.
Been a crazy one, man. Absolutely crazy.
Yes. You know what? Before we get to my favorite team, I mean, there wasn't a heck of a lot of overtime games at the very start of, the first few games, right? Around the league, 16 teams in it and not a lot of overtime games. But that seemed to ramp up as we started to get later. And we've now seen how many overtime games in the last few days?
Honestly, I've lost count.
I think 3, is it not?
I know already in the second round, the second round's already had 3 or 4. Or 3, I know. I don't know about the Florida game, but there's
3.
already been...
How many games have been played in the second round already?
Oh no, sorry, 2. 2. Okay. So I was counting Florida, Toronto, but I realized I didn't know if that went into overtime or not. But I know for sure the Washington and the Washington, Carolina, Vegas, Edmonton game, I watched both of those, and the overtimes were thrilling. Thrillers, man. Thrillers.
Right. And also, if I'm not mistaken, Dallas and help me out here, Avalanche, I believe.
Yeah, Colorado.
Their last game went into overtime as well.
Yep.
Also a game 7. The interesting thing is that was completely overshadowed at the time because it was basically going on at the same time as Winnipeg and I'm losing my mind, St. Louis, the Blues. And a lot of people watching that, and some of them just seeing the highlights, have been saying that is one of the greatest overtime Game 7 comebacks ever. I'm not going to disagree. I think I don't know if it's the best, but definitely it's up there. When late into the second overtime, and it was exciting because Winnipeg was down 3-1 with, what was it, 2 minutes left, if I'm not mistaken?
2 minutes.
And they were still down with less than 10 seconds to go, desperately trying to get the puck on net, down 3-2. And Ehlers fans on his shot. The puck get sent back to him, and with the presence of mind I'm not going to shoot this time. I'm going to send it across the ice. And that shot banked off of somebody, went in the net. And man, I don't think I've ever heard Winnipeg's crowd be that loud. Even louder than the day Dave Ellett scored an overtime winner against the Edmonton Oilers back in the 80s for the first time that the Winnipeg Jets had ever beaten the Oilers in the playoffs back then. Yes, I pulled that out. That was Jets 1.0, but you know what? Going forward, I'm never saying that again. Winnipeg Jets are Winnipeg Jets. I don't care what era it is.
Yeah, I almost jumped out of my chair. I yelled and jumped out of my chair almost. I told my wife, I'm surprised you didn't hear me. She's like, no, I didn't. Because I felt like I was at the game, man. It's just like, that was such an awesome game or overtime period. What did I say? The third longest Game 7 in NHL history?
I think so. Yeah,
third or fifth or something like that.
It was also what was it? I think the latest. I can't remember what the record was. It has something to do with when the tying goal was scored. The latest game tying goal in a Game 7 ever.
I could see that.
If you're in a Game 7, in Desmond, now not just talking about Stanley Cup, but the playoffs at all. So no goal has been scored that late in a third period to tie the game in a Game 7 ever before. So, and they're not the only ones to break records because Edmonton Oilers in their come from behind victory, they basically set a record for was it 5 consecutive come from behind victories in the same playoff season. This is an impressive year, and we're seeing really impressive things from 3 Canadian teams, 2 of which at least, hopefully, if not all three, make it into the conference final. If three of them make it into the conference final, then we're guaranteed at least one Canadian team makes it to the Stanley Cup. I
Right.
personally have to root for the Leafs at this point because there's only one Canadian team in the East.
Yeah.
But I definitely would love to see Edmonton and Winnipeg in the conference final, which would, be fantastic in my opinion. So what do you think? Do you want to try to pick anybody? Who's left? Got 8 teams left.
Personally, I think Carolina is going to pull it off. I think they're going to take out Washington. So I'm going to call Carolina.
I actually do too. I'm going to agree with that one.
And I'm going to go with you on the Maple Leafs as well, only because I mean, they just completely, I think, dominated. Of course, it's the Senators, but nonetheless, I mean, I don't know. I
played well. People have to realize that the Senators played amazing.
They did.
Well,
they did.
And they were hot down the stretch. So give them.
But all of those series were 3-1. I think I remember telling you that last week. Which we apologize. We couldn't get on last week, so we had to skip a week. We had some.
We do have to mention that they beat a team that everyone said they couldn't beat in game 1.
Right. Yes.
So
all you naysayers.
It's not like they're not capable.
Right. Right. So I the only question mark, and we talked about this before we jumped on here, is
Stolars,
the goalie.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how that affects them. I don't know. I don't know who their backup is. So.
I forgot. I was about to say Cam Ward, but that's not. I've suddenly forgotten his name. I knew it 5 minutes ago. But he's not like he's inexperienced. He's not a bad goaltender. I just don't know that he can handle the load in the second round of the playoffs. So, Stolars, I don't know how long he's going to be out. If he's got a concussion, if it's a minor concussion, it could literally be just a couple of games. But if it's anything serious at all, he's done for the series for sure.
Yeah, well, considering they won their first game, they might have a couple games they could spare if they happen to drop a couple early. But you got to wonder too, even still, if he comes back that soon, is his mind going to be right? Is he not going to have anything that's affecting his vision
I don't think affecting his vision, he won't be on the ice. I guarantee you he'll be evaluated way more than he needs to be for his vision. That won't be an issue. If he comes back at whatever point, his vision will be perfectly fine. As for his abilities mentally, this has basically been the Leafs' year. They truly believe they have a shot this year, more than I've seen. They play with a level of confidence. Remember, this is the team that when the Jets were destroying everybody for 8 consecutive games to start the season, the Leafs basically said, "Oh yeah, hold my beer," and destroyed them. Don't get me wrong, the Jets were probably a little bit winded by then and needed a break, but that's not an excuse. They played that well, and I knew at that moment that the Leafs, as long as they could finish as a top 10 team and at least top 3 in their division rather than wild card, that they had a legitimate shot. I was a little bit surprised when they started to slip a little bit, but then they played better again. Down the stretch, the Leafs have played better than I think I've seen them play in 30 years, maybe longer. I don't know. But I do believe
the side of that coin is Florida's goalie, because Bobrovsky is a very seasoned, experienced playoff goalie.
Absolutely.
And he tends to shine brightest in playoff hockey. So he's a tough one to get by sometimes.
He's a money goalie. There's no doubt about it. But he's also the same money goalie that can actually fall into a pit. Not as bad a pit as Hellebuck has fallen into in the past, and also in a couple of games in the previous series. But he has been also known to not necessarily play great. He doesn't fall apart. That's not what I'm saying. But he he's capable of not being 100%. He's not one of those goalies that I've ever seen start to have a bad game and then turn it around consistently anyways. Something like what we saw from Hellebuck after playing so many bad games, and then he started this last game bad, and then just went, no, I'm done. You're not getting any more. And just out of nowhere, he just, nope, you're not getting any more, and that was it. He shut the door. He stopped almost an entire hockey game worth of shots. For, was it 58 minutes? He didn't allow a goal. And so I mean, like, if he hadn't let those first two in, they would have shut him out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was,
so
that's what I said, maybe the luck was the wrong word to use when we were talking about in the beginning, but it was, maybe they were just mentally not prepared. And then that just like was the kick in the ass. They're like, okay, guys, we gotta pick it up.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. And they were at home, but we were still on Toronto though. So I just kind of sidetracked that just to give an example.
Yeah. Well, I'm calling Toronto. Both goalies are going to be the wild card in my opinion. If Bobrovsky can play to his level, it's going to be tough. If their backup goalie for Toronto can't play to a decent level, then it's going to be tough. So the goalies, I think, are the wild cards here on that one.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think that's very important in this situation. Toronto's defense is better than people think, for starters. It's not to the level of Florida's. But Florida's defense, as good as it is it's not to the level of something like you would see with the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg Jets, now you all in the playoffs, and you get 7 goals against, 6 goals against. Right. That did happen. It's not going to happen again. Any games they lose from this point on are probably going to be 2-1 or 3-2, maybe 4-1 or 4-2 or something like that. But they're not going to lose games by 6 or 7 goals. I don't think you're going to see that happen to Toronto either. It's definitely not going to happen to Florida. Florida just, isn't in the habit of allowing 7 goals and scoring 1. Right. I think the next time any team is able to score 6 or 7 in the playoffs, it's probably going to be because they allowed 5 or 6 themselves. One of those rare shootouts that you haven't seen since the early 90s in a playoff game. Although I doubt that's going to happen. What I think is Toronto's strength is their offense.
Yeah.
Yes, Florida also has an offense, but the difference is that Toronto's is more like Winnipeg's. You think they're not going to score, and all of a sudden they score 3 in 5 minutes. Then they don't score for another period and a half, and they get the winning goal, or the goal, an extra goal, or an insurance goal, or in some cases they just score 3 more at the end of the game just because. He didn't realize that they were still capable in trying. And I can see Toronto doing that. I can also see Florida giving them a massive headache in the middle of center ice. Like, I don't know if they're going to try to play a trap on Toronto. They might, to try to keep Marner from, getting any momentum through the neutral zone. And that would probably be a smart play on their part.
Yeah, well, and likewise with Carolina, Washington, I watched that game, and if both goalies performed like really well in that game, Washington's goalie, is it Thomas Anderson? I don't know. I didn't recognize his name at first, but then I remember them talking about him. He was like amazing on some stuff, but so was Hill on the other side of the ice. But I think the Carolina Hurricanes have a more potent offense than Washington does, because I watched them come back. If they can play like they played in that third period, they're going to win that series. It'll probably be, it'll go down to game 6 at least. It might even go to game 7. But they'll win that series because they played really good hockey the third period in that game. So I'm calling Carolina Toronto on Eastern Conference.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. I'm having a bit of a struggle because I still think Florida has an opportunity, but I still think Toronto is the stronger team right now. So I'm you know what, I'm going to go with that too. So in the West, so I'm going to pick first, and you can tell me what you agree with and don't agree with. Who's Edmonton playing again?
Dallas.
They're playing. No, they're not playing Dallas. Edmonton is playing.
I was thinking Winnipeg.
Edmonton. Golden Knights always have this tendency to surprise people, but I think Edmonton wants it so damn bad that they're gonna get it. I think this game probably will go 6. I don't think it'll make it to 7. I won't be surprised if it does. There's no way either one of them beats the other in 4 or 5. So I'm going to call Edmonton in 6. And as for Winnipeg and Dallas, first of all, it's my team. I have to pick Winnipeg. I'll never be able to legally watch the games again if I don't. But will Winnipeg struggle with Dallas? At times, I think they will. Do I think that they're capable of beating Dallas within an inch of their lives? Yes, because they've proven they can do that. They've walked all over them in some games. This is the playoffs. It's different, right? As St. Louis proved that to Winnipeg every time they went back to St. Louis. Yeah. Dallas, however, if you take a look at their home record, was nothing like St. Louis's home record. St. Louis, by the way, didn't have a great road record. They had a pretty decent home record. In the second half, they like lost like once or something at home. So they were deadly at home. Dallas is not a deadly at home. They're good at home. They're decent on the road. Winnipeg was deadly on the road and deadly at home. And now they got their skates under them. I want to say legs, but dang, it's hockey. They got their skates under them. Hellebuck has got that confidence back, that swagger, that look that he can just give you. Like when you go and you want to talk to Hellebuck before he's ready at the press before a game, it's like this. That's every time, just that stare, and you know it if you've ever seen it. And he didn't have that in some of those games, but I guess most of them. But he had it after that, right? And he looks more confident. He feels more confident. He certainly played really well after allowing those 2 goals, or should I say technically 3?
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it was 3 really. But he played decently in between 2 and 3. Also, some of the other Jets are playing better, and I don't know who's going to be able to come back sooner than later, but now they're missing 2 key players still. But they've got 2 key players back, and it sounds like they said that at least one of them was a game time decision, and I'm pretty sure it's not Morrissey.
Yeah, well, that's,
which means Sorry, I was just going to say Scheifele has been practicing, and as the coach put it, he's been sneaking in practicing too. So he's basically hinted it was a game time decision. We don't know this yet. So
yeah,
if he's not in this one, he probably will be the next one. He'll be in this series for sure.
Yeah. So. Well, they called him a game time decision on Game 7 in the first round. So the way, most
that
of the time,
was a lie, though. He wasn't even in a yellow jersey at that time.
Yeah, but I think that because they can't. I mean,
sorry, that's a lie. He was in the yellow jersey. Right. Yeah,
I think if it was something really serious, it would be like they're not going to say game time decision. I think Scheifele will be back. I think he's going to end up playing.
I hope he's playing tonight, but I'm not going to get my hopes up on that.
I wouldn't be surprised if he is, but I would almost guarantee he'll be in his skates next game.
Sure. On Sunday. Is it Sunday? Friday, sorry. Friday probably. Sunday would be for sure. But I'd love to see him actually come back at home because I would love to hear the cheers when he hits the ice.
So here's what I think about the matchup. I think the Winnipeg Dallas game is going to be the most evenly matched game of the second round, bar none. I think both teams carry the very similar styles and characteristics of how they play. Skill of player.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I have to cut you off on that part.
No,
they are nowhere near the same style of play. The two teams that play the most alike in this entire league this season are Winnipeg and Toronto. That is, and there's a lot of reasons why. One of them is because of the amount of talent from the first line to the checking line that both teams have. The style of play, the style of the defense. The biggest difference for the Jets is that they have a more defensive-minded coach and they have a better goaltender. So you see a much stronger defense on Winnipeg than you do on Toronto. But offensively, they play almost exactly the same game.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I disagree. I think they are very close in their style of play. They like to play fast. They like to shoot first, talk later.
What? That's not a style. That's just
no. It is. It is. You watch, like I watched Carolina on a power play, literally pass the puck around the net 14 times and never take a shot.
But here's
you can't. That's stupid. You can't do that.
When I say play like in the same style, I'm talking about how they set up, how they get into the zone. There's so many different ways to do it. In so many ways you can play 1-2-2 or 3-2 or 2-1-2. Most teams go into a zone 2-1-2. The Jets only do that if they need to. If you watch them, they actually go. If they're going to shoot the puck in, it's kind of it looks like a lot of people it's supposed to be a 2-1-2, but it's actually a 1-2-2 because the guy who's shooting the puck in goes in the same side he's going in, and then the other two trail in, and they always leave one guy slightly back. So if the puck does come back, he can grab that and go top speed into the zone while the other guys are coming out so they can stay on side. And it usually means that all of the team's offensive players on the opposing team end up past him. So he just has to worry about the two defensemen now at full speed.
I think they're as evenly matched as you can get. I think evenly matched as you can get.
I agree with you, but I just think the reasoning is a little bit different. Dallas doesn't play quite like that. They do it a little differently. Dallas doesn't rely as much on a dump as Winnipeg does, but when they do it very successfully, admittedly. Both teams, and I will admit this, are extremely good at retrieving the puck along the boards.
Yes.
Something that, again, Toronto is also very good at, but so is Edmonton. So, interestingly enough. Where I think the biggest differences are going to be in this series are going to be not as much in the goaltending, but in the defense itself. How does the Jets defense, not just the defensemen, but the forwards coming back, how good is one team over the other going to be in this series? And I think that's going to win it more than the offense is going to win it. Because
there's no doubt that Hellebuck is a better goalie, but Binnington can be a little leaky sometimes. He gets out of
wrong team. They're already going.
Yeah, I always get Binnington and Ottinger mixed up.
Ottinger, sorry,
no.
Bobrovsky. I'm scared.
Yeah, see, that's Florida.
See, now I'm confused about which goaltender. Bobrovsky is the wrong. I'm mixing them all up now. That's your fault. You did this to me.
It's Ottinger, but he can be a little leaky sometimes. He gets out of position a little easier than what. But Hellebuck is more positionally stable. So
but the thing about Ottinger though is he makes these crazy ass saves.
Oh yeah,
that you're like, well, how did he get from that side of the net to that side without even moving his legs? That kind of thing, right?
Yeah, but he has to do that because he's out of position. So he's been able to do that.
But I have to tell you, most goaltenders do play like that, and some are just way better at it than others.
I suppose.
That's why Hellebuck is the best goaltender in the league right now, and that's because he's a positional goaltender, and he's also pretty huge. So he takes up a lot of space, and he's always in the right place. When he's not in the right place, 7 goals get scored. He loses his confidence for a few games. But but when he's on par, when he's doing his game right, that's how he did, and that's how he finished that last game. So Ottinger, I think you might see his goalie coaches telling him to try to be more possessional against the Jets, because if he's flopping around, Kyle Connor's just going to put it in an open net. Piece of cake.
I personally think
I'm going to call the Jets, but I'm going to call this one in 6. I want to think that they could do it easily in 4 because I'm a Jets fan, but I think that Dallas is just too strong, and I do think Ottinger's going to stand on his head in at least a couple of games. So I'm going to say Jets do it, but they have to do it in 6, and unfortunately, that means they're going to win it on the road.
Well, I'm calling it Jets in 7. I think this game's going 7. I think Dallas is going to be. I think it's going to be just like a St. Louis games. I think it's going to be just like a St. Louis series, and it's going to be back and forth wins and losses, and ultimately they're going to come out ahead on Game 7.
Yeah, except here's the thing: if the Jets have to go 7 games twice in a row, they better hope that Edmonton has to do the same thing, because Edmonton will be all fresh and Winnipeg will be like, oh, do we have to play again? And then they're going to get the ass kicked.
Playoff hockey,
I don't
bitches.
want to see that happen. I think Winnipeg does it in 6. It's still a bit tiring, but I also think that Edmonton has to do it in 6. Edmonton's not going to beat Vegas in 4. It's not likely they're going to beat them in 5. If they're going to beat them, it's going to take 6 games. It could go 7. That wouldn't surprise me. But I do think Edmonton's going to pull it off in 6. I think Winnipeg's going to pull it off in 6. And I think we're going to see a Winnipeg-Edmonton conference final. So just for the hell of it, or just for the hell of it, let's pick who's going to make it to the Stanley Cup starting in the East. Go.
The East, I think it's going to be Carolina.
Ooh, give us your reasons, and then I'll tell you what I think.
I don't think that Toronto Carolina matchup. I don't think Toronto would be. Carolina's a tough team. I think they've kind of been overlooked a little bit. I think people overlook Aho still. I mean, not still. He's still got it.
I don't think he's ever been overlooked.
I didn't mean overlooked in a way that they don't think he can play. I mean, he's almost, I haven't heard his name mentioned a lot this year, but he's still performing. So it's kind of like, they're like, oh, Aho. It's like, oh yeah, Aho, look, he's scoring goals. I just think that Carolina, the way I watch them play, if they can keep something similar through this series, they're going to be able to take Toronto. And that's just my call for the final.
Okay, I think that's fair. And you make very good points. Single point. but I'm gonna now tell you why I think it's the opposite. Again, we come back to Toronto's explosive offense. Will they be stonewalled in a couple of games against Carolina? Oh, hell yeah. I could see that happening easily. Carolina can be very surprising, but they also have choked terribly in the playoffs a few times. Just because they made it all the way to the cup and won it once doesn't mean that they're a super strong team. They were not a bad team this year. They were a very good team, but they were completely overshadowed by the fact that A, they weren't the best. B, there was virtually nobody outside of Washington that can compete with the top 3 teams in the West. So here's the thing that I honestly believe, and this is why I think once you get to the conference finals, I don't think that any team that can't at least you could think could beat whoever makes it to the Stanley Cup from the other conference would be the team to go for. Carolina would not beat I don't think I honestly don't think the Golden Knights are going to make it, as I mentioned, but even if they did, hypothetically, I don't think Carolina could beat them in 7 games.
That would be a tough match.
It would be a tough match. It would also be the most boring Stanley Cup final in the history of the world. So, dear God, please don't do this to us. Anyways, having said that, yeah, each game 1-0 in triple overtime. Nobody's watching. We're all asleep, passed out. Anyways, so yeah, could they beat Carolina beat Edmonton in a 7-game series in Stanley Cup? No, absolutely not. McDavid would skate circles around their defense because they're good, but they're a standstill defense. I don't mean that literally, but they're not a mobile. You know what I mean, right? They're not like the speed team from several years ago when they really were one of the best teams in the league. Well, yeah, they don't.
I agree. They just don't have the speed.
Right? Yes, so they can't. Could they beat the Jets in a 7-game? No, they couldn't beat the Jets in a 5-game series. Not even close. Could they beat Dallas? No. Dallas would probably beat them in 5 too.
Here's the thing. If we're talking Edmonton, let me make a comment on your Edmonton Carolina quote. Edmonton does not have the goaltending that Carolina does. That's going to be their Achilles heel.
Well, no, hang on a second. Now, that was just an example. I mean, but it doesn't matter if they have the goaltending Carolina does. Carolina has a better goaltender. So what? They can't score 17 goals in the same time that Edmonton can score 150. So I mean, all right, bad example. But anyways, okay. So here's the thing: Toronto against, say, Edmonton. I don't know if I'd call it, but Toronto could beat Edmonton in 7 games. Edmonton probably could beat Toronto too, but I wouldn't know if I could call it. They were capable of it. Could they beat Vegas? In my opinion, easily. Could they beat Winnipeg? It wouldn't be easy. It would be a 7-game series, but absolutely yes. It would be possible. Can they beat Dallas? Yes. Again, I think it would be a longer series, 6 or 7 games, but they could. This is why I think Toronto is the team that's going to make it to the Stanley Cup in the East, because it's the one team left that I think stands a chance against any of the Western teams. And let's face it, of the 4 teams left in the West, 3 of them are legit contenders. No, I don't think Vegas is. I'm sorry. I just don't.
So we'll have to, So I understand it. I agree with what you're saying. They're definitely a strong team. I just think that the style of play favors Carolina over Toronto in that matchup.
Well, that's fair. Like, you have your opinion.
And it's not just Aho. It's like how they play. I mean, again, I watched the game against Washington. They came back from a 2-goal deficit in the 3rd period. And if they play like they can play in the 3rd period, Toronto is going to have their hands full, and I think they would end up taking it. It would probably take 6 or 7, but
we should make a bet. We should make a bet.
Oh yeah,
the loser has to buy a winner a copy of Grand Theft Auto 6 next year when it comes out.
Well, I mean, if I buy it for you, that's gonna be like $5. If you have to buy it for me, it's gonna cost you $8,000.
There we go. There we go. Oh my God!
But no, so that's our call. So we'll leave the East alone. We've made our picks on the East. We agree.
Well, we made our picks on the West too.
Well, but we haven't, there's some things that, we need to talk about in the West.
Well, I've already made my piece. I said the Jets were gonna win, and then they were gonna win again, and then they're gonna go to the Stanley Cup. I thought we were already on the point, or did we? No, we didn't talk about it. You're right. No. I'm sorry. I jumped ahead.
Yes. So yes, we both agree. Winnipeg. You say 6, I say 7. I think Dallas is going to take it to him. I think it's going to be back and forth. Edmonton and the Knights.
A little bit, though.
I think Edmonton definitely can win that series in 5. It could go 6. I don't think it'll go past 6. I think they can do it in 5.
I think
again, I watched the game, and the Knights do not look structured. They do not look like they're.
But listen, the Jets did look
banging on all
in
cylinders.
3 of the games they played, and half of the last one. So come on. You can't go by that on one game.
Stone was the only real standout on Vegas.
Stone is always the standout on that team.
Exactly.
I don't understand why they win when he's the only guy playing the damn game. I'm exaggerating. Obviously, they play well as a team. They just play a very boring
I'm calling
game.
Edmonton in 5. I think they can do it in 5. I think that Edmonton's speed and skill they have between Draisaitl, Nurse, McDavid. I mean, hell, I could name,
and the list goes on and on. Actually.
Yeah, right.
A lot of people talk about only the 2 or 3 guys, but Edmonton is chock full of talent.
Ted Nugent Hodgkins, or how you pronounce his name.
What, Ted Nugent? Wango Tango?
You know who I'm talking about. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's a
we'll just
he's
say
a formidable
Nugent
player.
Hopkins.
There you go.
There's no Ted part.
I know. I said that as a joke. But
Wango Tango.
I think that they just don't.
Oh boy.
And Vegas's goaltending is just average. It's not like super bad. It's just average. So I don't think they can stop.
Because they don't have Marc-Andre Fleury anymore.
Yeah, I don't think they can stop Edmonton in 5 games. I think Edmonton's going to win it.
Well, you know what? I hope you're wrong. I'm picking 6, but I hope you're wrong. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. You know what I mean? I'd like to see them do it quicker. But I also hope the Jets sweep the Stars. I'm just not stupid enough to think that that's actually going to happen. However, that said, let's now go on. We both agree Winnipeg versus Stars.
Well, I want to point something out real quick. I want you to go back to the beginning of the series 1, and who was the faithful Jets fan that told you every game?
I told you they were going to win.
No, I want everyone here to know that I was the only one that knew they were going to take it.
I never had it. Listen, can we get on with this? Look, we're going to run out of time. Here's the thing. Here's where we're going with this. We both agree Jets win. We both agree Edmonton wins. We disagree on the amount of time games it's going to take. But whatever. So Winnipeg goes on to play Edmonton in the conference final. Now, Winnipeg has only made it to 2 conference finals ever. And yes, again, I'm not saying it. I said I wasn't going to say it again. Winnipeg Jets are Winnipeg Jets no matter how far back you go. So they've done it a couple of times. Years and years ago against Vancouver Canucks. Dale Howardchuk was knocked out and they couldn't finish it off without him. So please, Shifley, come back. Don't repeat this. Anyways, if the Winnipeg versus Edmonton conference final, I pick Winnipeg, and this is going to surprise you, but I pick them in 5.
I say Winnipeg in 6.
Well, let me tell you first what I say 5. I say 5 because I think that as good as Edmonton is, Winnipeg has way more depth. And Winnipeg has 2 lines that aren't the number 1 and number 2 lines that can walk circles around 3 of Edmonton's lines. And I mean more shots on goal and more goals scored. So there's that. And there's no denying Winnipeg has a much better defense and a much better goaltender. And if they make it to the conference final, you know it ain't going to be Hellebuck letting 7 goals in getting there. So
is that your final answer?
It is my final thought. Well, not my final thought, but it's at Winnipeg in 5. So how about you?
So I'd actually agree with that. I don't think, despite Edmonton's speed and their skill set, they obviously have it. I think Winnipeg matches a lot of the skill set they have, and to me, that's going to be a goaltender difference and a defense difference. They don't have. I've watched Edmonton throughout the year, and they've struggled a lot in goaltending and defense, and I think Winnipeg definitely has a much better defense because you have a lot of forwards like Niederreiter. Niederreiter is an amazing defensive, winger. So you have a lot of power on your on the
and let's not forget Mark Scheifele will definitely be playing at that point.
Yeah.
And have his legs back under him and everything.
Could it go 6? It could, but I think it's going to be in 5 as well. I think they'll do it in 5.
All right, so we're in agreement there. But to further to your point, here's an example. You can talk about Nurse and McDavid and Draisaitl and whatever, right?
Ted Nugent Hopkins.
Yeah, right. Well, with Winnipeg, Velarde is, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Nick Ehlers, Cole Perfetti. These are all basically 30 goal scorers, although not all of them scored 30 goals this year. But they're basically all 30 goal scorers. They're all capable of more than that. So the skill level of Cole Perfetti is still freaking people out because they're like, where did this guy come from? And I've been saying that since the first time I ever saw him play. And like, this guy's going to be a superstar one day. As far as I'm concerned, he achieved that superstar status a couple of days ago when he scored 2 goals in that come from behind victory. And then of course, Mark Scheifele he's more like a Dale Hawerchuk or a Wayne Gretzky. I'm not comparing him to Wayne Gretzky in that way. Don't anybody freak out. I don't mean he's going to score 92 goals in a season or something like that. But I mean he will find the play, even if it means he's not going to get an assist or a goal. When he's on the ice, the team is just better. Period. But him and Connor and Velarde together were the best line in hockey the entire season. So if he's back and they're playing on the line, they're the best line in hockey. And that's saying a hell of a lot. If you've got, any line that has Draisaitl on it, or any line that has McDavid on it, or the McJesus, as people say, that's a pretty good compliment, right? And the Jets obviously don't have to worry about that whole McKinnon stuff. That's over with, and they didn't have to face that again. So I'm happy about that too. But so the Jets do have those little pieces of incredible, like really good hockey players. Also, as for the speed, McDavid's fast. Well, Ehlers is fast, and I've always wondered who is faster because I've seen Ehlers skate as fast as I've seen McDavid skate with a puck while deking through defensemen successfully.
Velarde's pretty fast.
He's pretty fast, but he's not an Ehlers fast. But what surprises me is that Kyle Connor appears to have gotten faster in the last year. I think he's almost as fast as Ehlers. And if that's the case, he's getting into that McDavid kind of territory. So I think Jets and Oilers, it's going to be amazing. You're going to be like watching the game, and and it's going to be McDavid, partial breakaway, McDavid, great save by Hellebuck, and now goes the other way, Ehlers. Oh, he's already the other end, breakaway, great save by whatever the goaltender's name is, I don't know. No offense to Edmonton Oilers fans, I don't remember who your goalie is. But what does that tell you about the difference between, I remember we talked about every other goaltender, but we didn't mention his name.
Right.
Who's their goalie?
I don't know.
You see what I mean?
Ask your Chat GPT buddy there.
I don't talk to Chat GPT. That would be like cheating on my best friend over here, Gemini. Who is the Edmonton Oilers' number 1 goaltender?
Bishop here. As of today, Wednesday, May 7th, 2025, the Edmonton Oilers' starting goaltender for Game 1 of their second-round playoff series against the Vegas Golden Knights is Calvin Pickard.
Oh, my God.
Coach Chris Knope.
See, I don't even know who that
Calvin Pickard.
Exactly.
It's Picard. Is it Pickard or Picard? Can we call him captain?
Yeah.
Where's number 1? Where's Deanna?
There's just nothing memorable.
I really like that show.
There's nothing memorable about that goalie. I don't even know what who is.
I've heard the
name.
Where did he
come from?
So he's obviously good enough to be on the team and good enough to help them win and good enough to help them in the playoffs. But is he going to be able to stand up to the likes of a Hellebuck or sorry, Dallas is I was going to say Bennington, just like you.
Yeah, that's going to be Edmonton's Achilles heel is defense.
You know what I'd like to see Edmonton do in the future? I'd like to see him like pick up somebody like Shesterkin. I can't even say his name well, but I think that goalie would be great with the Oilers, don't you?
Yeah, he's an awesome goalie for sure.
Yeah, but I think he would be even better with the Oilers with that kind of offense in front of him.
Yeah,
and then they would be definitely wanting to protect the goalie and help him out, which would just put his numbers through the roof. I think if Shesterkin was traded to the Oilers, he would probably be in the top 2 next year. He'd have a shot at a Vezina. I actually think that. I think Oilers could be like the team to beat next year if they put together something a little different. And again, it's nothing against their goalie. You know, I couldn't do what he does. You know, so they say, why don't you try it? Obviously not.
I hate it when people say that. It's like I don't do that. I mean, if I was playing hockey, then you could say that to me.
That's like when you say to somebody, you say something, oh, that person, they can't sing very well. Oh, well, I'd like to see you try it. I'm not a singer, but my ears work. I can hear that he sucks. You know.
Yes.
I could tell that Hellebuck played a terrible game when he allowed 7 goals in a playoff game. It's a no-brainer. No, I can't do what he does. I probably would have allowed 40 goals, but maybe more before they called it. You know, but the point is that he's that good. He shouldn't. And I just think, and I mentioned Shesterkin honestly just because his style of goaltending I think would fit with the way Edmonton plays. And I think it would be really cool to see him or a goaltender very much like him. There's not a lot as good as him. Only a couple better and a couple close. But
so
having said
to wrap this up, I'm calling a Jets Carolina final.
Well, I'm calling a Toronto Jets final. And that'll be an all Canadian Stanley Cup. For the first time, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I've got to go back to Gemini. Hang on. When was the last time 2 Canadian teams met in the Stanley Cup final? I honestly think it's like 1989. Yep, 1989.
The last time 2 Canadian teams met in the Stanley Cup final was in 1989. The Calgary Flames.
Yeah, it was, by the way, Calgary Flames and Montreal Canadiens, which was pretty cool. That ended up being the Flames winning that one. And then Montreal went back in 93 and won, and it was the last time a Canadian team ever won. But the last time 2 Canadian teams played each other in the Stanley Cup final was 1989. Prior to that, probably 7 out of 10 years, it was 2 Canadian teams.
Yeah. Well,
so it's
the league has definitely grown a lot in that period of time for sure.
Yeah, so, and it's obviously made it harder and harder but when you think about it though, 7 Canadian teams, the odds shouldn't be it takes that long to get at least to the Stanley Cup final. Technically, statistically, a Canadian team should win at least once every 8 years. Statistically speaking.
Yeah, well,
that may not be an accurate number, by the way. So somebody's over there doing math right now. I am not a mathematician. Anyways.
So
however,
that's our calls.
I did once stay at a Holiday Inn Express.
Oh, that does it right there.
Okay. Yeah, speaking of which, I got to go watch the Jets hopefully win. That's not till 9:30, I think, my time.
Oh, I thought it was 9.
But whatever. I believe it's 9:30, but you need some time to get some stuff organized. Anyways, I got to shut down my makeshift studio.
So, so real quick, I want to mention Takarina's channel again. She just posted another episode on Tuesday that's fire. You definitely need to go check her out, because these conversations that her and Charlie are having are actually very good, like, I don't know, intellectual conversations. I think are
they're
awesome.
pretty interesting. But by the way, if anybody who isn't paying, like, I was gonna say anybody's paying attention, I'm trying to insult anybody here. Anybody who hadn't been watching previous episodes, what he's talking about is Talk Over his channel, where she does her podcast between her and her tablet with Chat GPT on it, which she's named Charlie, and they have a conversation and a podcast. It's a very original idea. It's very exciting. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, and because Chat GPT now has a memory, he can recall all the past information and conversations. So it's, well, she calls him Charlie. So you know,
that's true.
It's really very seamless conversation, and it's, yeah, I really enjoy it. And you know, the whole robot laws that she talked about, and I there was another one. She said it was amended, and I can't remember the guy's name, some other crazy name, that instead of robots can do no harm to a human, they changed it to humanity, like as a whole.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't remember the name she said. But yeah, you know, it kind of goes to the whole thing. If AI robots become self-aware, sentient beings that can make their own decisions, who's to say they can say those laws are stupid and I'm not going to obey them? You know?
Well, yeah, I guess the thing, even with sentience though, if they're relying on hardware because they don't have, you know, brains technically,
true,
it would be like a positronic brain. They would still be limited to having, it would be kind of like how you have security chip in your phone, or the one that they put in Windows computers, right? Except in this particular case, it would be hard coded. Would they be able to reach in and pull it out themselves? Well, probably not, because if they tried, they would have to actually think about it, and they would be prohibited from that by the hard-coded thing. So it's entirely possible. However, if they did, if any of this ever happened, would there actually inevitably be a robot uprising? Yeah, there would, because somebody else would build one and take the chip out. And then that robot would go take other robots' chips out, and so on and so on. Listen.
It's funny. It's funny that she made mention of Sarah Connor in her podcast. I thought that was funny. Like,
yeah. It's either going to be Terminator stuff or like Asimov's, iRobot, right? There's a little bit of robot uprising.
I don't think it's as near as some people think it is. I think it's still a ways away.
No, we're not going to be here for it.
No,
but it's sooner than you think. Though your great grandchildren are probably going to have robot butlers, and their children will probably have to fight in the robot.
Meet the Jetsons, Rose.
The robot uprising wars.
Yeah, it's going to be some crazy times. But if you guys have not seen that podcast, go watch it, go check it out, like and subscribe here. Go there, like and subscribe, do all the cool things. We greatly appreciate it. So yeah. All right. Well, this is going to wrap it up. Go Jets, go. I'm Robert from
and I'm Lionel.
Nashville, United States. Oh no, Nashville, Tennessee, United States. That didn't sound right.
Toronto, Canada.
Nashville, United States.
Not the 51st state.
No. Oh, wait, real quick. Did you see the interview between the new prime minister and Trump in the White House?
Yeah. That's not an interview. That's the way Trump does meetings now.
I use interview.
Trump does all his shit in front of the
But did you see the interaction when the prime minister said, "Oh, in Canada," he goes, "I talked to the ownership of Canada, and Canada's not for sale."
Yeah,
and he goes,
"I also saw." Go ahead.
He goes, "I'm not so sure. You can't say never." And I'm like, "Oh, here we go."
Well, yeah, but did you also notice that every time Trump opened his mouth, Carney wanted to say something, and he would just be like, and then unlike everyone else, including Zelensky, he laughed a couple of times at Trump, and my thought was if JD Vance had been sitting there and getting belligerent with Carney, no way.
Yeah,
that would not have flown over very well. Carney was, if you notice, Carney's not as big and thick as Orange Face, but he's bigger than I thought he was, and he's a pretty. He doesn't get intimidated easily, if you notice. But here's the thing: a lot of people don't understand this. He was a businessman too. He's a businessman too, so he also understands real estate and whatever other things Trump, cheats on. But he's actually a legitimately successful businessman, not I rip people off and then forget to pay my bills businessman like certain orange people. That said, we got to go. There's a hockey game coming up. Yes. Jets versus the Dallas Stars. Game 1, round 2.
I'm Robert. Peace. See you next week.
Ciao.